Well, hello and welcome to the Bumper to Bumper podcast. I'm Dave Riccio, co-creator of Bumper to Bumper Radio and your host of the Bumper to Bumper podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, John Riggle. Together with 75 years of combined experience, we're putting you in the know when it comes to your car. John, it's that time of year where it's just about to get boiling hot. We are in Phoenix, Arizona, which is like ground zero for air condition repair in your vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
The
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
the thing about air condition repair, I mean, the phone calls start ringing maybe if people are thinking ahead, maybe in April, because you know May's coming around the corner. It's going to get hot. And you don't, in the milder months, you don't notice the air condition isn't working right. But when you get to June and it's 105 degrees or 110 degrees, you're like,
Oh, yeah.
something's missing.
Oh, yeah.
And as long as I've been in the automotive industry, I've seen probably the number one, and I don't know that you would disagree with me, but the number one reason a car goes back to the shop is air conditioned service or repair.
Yeah.
Dis-
Oh, yeah. I think it's just as high on the list as you can get.
Probably the number one thing that as a consumer you can do with an air conditioned service, you call up a shop and you say, hey, I need an air conditioned service, right?
Mhm.
Is it an air conditioned service because every now and then your air condition cuts out and doesn't work? Is it an air conditioned service because you don't have good airflow coming out of the dashboard? Why are we servicing the air condition? And if technician jumps in the car, he throws some gauges on it. He doesn't really look for a problem. He services it. You think you're good.
Yeah.
So communication might be it is one of the more prevalent reasons as to why a car comes back. What are some of the other reasons?
Sure. The number one reason they come back is my AC isn't cold enough. And so we have to be careful with that. I just had it serviced. It's not cold enough. It takes 20 minutes to cool the car down after it's been sitting in the sun, at the shopping mall all day. And it's like, well, here's where we have to probably establish expectations, and we have to determine how long is it taking to get the car cool. We'll bring it down to a comfortable level, or do you just have unreasonable expectations? There's no air conditioner out there where you get in the car where it's 170 degrees inside that car, you flip it on, and car is cool. It doesn't work that
Not
way.
happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, expectations and I mean, a little side note: parking in the shade makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
If you
Oh,
can park in
yeah.
the shade in Arizona, you drive across a parking lot and the whole parking lot's empty, but there'll be one tree out there
Yeah, yeah.
and one car parked next to it.
Yep, exactly.
Because so communicating with the shop is going to be really key to getting the right results when you go in for an air conditioned service.
Yeah.
So you need to establish what is happening. So you feel like your car is not, it's maybe blowing cool, but not cold.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of information. So you call
Yeah.
the shop and you say, my air conditioning's cool, but not cold. That's one thing. The other thing that comes into play is airflow. So
Mhm.
not a matter of cool versus cold. It's a matter of how much air is actually hitting me. So that in air conditioning, in the air conditioned world, it works twofold. Not only does it blow cool air, it also, the velocity of air creates that secondary cooling effect off your skin.
Yeah.
So airflow could be another issue. So is it blowing enough, cool versus cold? And then sometimes you turn on the air conditioner and it blows hot air like it's heated by something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a good piece of information. What other things might someone coming in for an air conditioned service, John, look for?
Well, noises.
Noises.
Noises, yeah. Every time I turn my air conditioner on, it rattles or makes some kind of noise or something like that. So that's just another one of those things. We just want to be really specific so that the tech knows, what your issue with the AC is. So, and the one that comes to mind is airflow. I see air conditioners all the time that they're blowing 44 degrees out the ducts if you put a thermometer in there, but the car never feels cool. When you go out and get in the car, you start driving it, you're 20 minutes down your drive, and you're just like, it's just
Not
not
doing it.
comfortable in here. And that's where I see airflow issues. And that brings us back to like restricted cabin filters and stuff like that, because that's something that occurs over a long period of time. That restriction, they don't get restricted overnight. It's not like you get in, turn the air conditioner on, it doesn't work one day. Over a period of time, the airflow gets reduced and reduced and reduced as that filter gets restricted. And at some point, then you notice, well, yeah, it's taken a long time to get comfortable in the car, and that's what everybody's looking for. Everybody's looking for comfortable.
Comfort.
And, and a big portion of that is, like you already mentioned, the airflow, the volume of air coming out of the ducts and stuff. And sometimes, unless you have an anerometer and you're actually measuring the airflow at the ducts, a lot of that is subjective.
Right.
So you've got a guy that's out working in the shop. He's out there sweating. It's 108 degrees in the shop. He gets in the car. It feels cool to him, right?
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of differences there, and a little bit of subjectivity.
So airflow being a part of it, noises being a part of it. Now, the one that's in your bay right now, as we speak, is air conditioning blows cold,
Mm-hmm.
but every now and then it just cuts out all of a sudden.
Yep.
And then it just quits, it's blowing warm air or knocks something out. And then the other thing that's going on, it doesn't have a ton of airflow. So when you're sitting in the passenger, it's not blowing you back.
Yeah.
What did you find on that car, and how are we fixing it?
Well, that one had an unusual complaint, and one of the complaints was the air conditioning flickers. And it took me a minute to get this, right? So the control head for the air conditioner is actually part of the center stack display. You've got that driver information display, doubles as a radio, all your climate controls are in there. When this thing would act up, it would flicker. The screen would flicker real quick, and you could hear the blowers go on and off. Well, the way it tuned into me, the first thing I do when I get in the car is when I assess the air conditioner. This car has dual air, so it's got a front system and a rear system. I always flip the rear system off. That brings me right back down to the front. I always assess it with just the front system working. Let's see where we're at here. Then I flip the rear system on. And so the first thing I did when I got in the car was turn the rear off, turn the front on. I'm like, yeah, it works perfect. This is nice. I don't know what they're talking about. And then I'm like, well, you know what? I need to check temperatures at the rear. I'll go ahead and flip it on. And as soon as I flip the switch to the second blower position, right behind my head, I had to reach up in the console behind my head. I noticed the front display flickered, and I was like, oh, this starts to fit now. So I reached back and I could wiggle the knob on the rear control head, and I could make it
see it flicker,
come and go. And I'm like, okay, well, so this car, my temperature was good coming out of the ducts, but she had an intermittent problem where we would completely lose airflow intermittently. The thing would flash, but I'm still looking at it going, okay, the air is cold, but even when it works, it feels like there's not much volume here. So I better go check that cabin filter. And I stuck my head down under the dash, and I noticed that I could see the cabin filter, which is unusual because it should have a plastic door over it.
right?
The plastic door that goes in, you insert the cabin filter, and then you snap this little plastic door over. That plastic door is missing. Well, that plastic door also seals the case around it. So I'm like, well, that's not good. We're losing airflow here.
Right.
So I pulled the filter out. The filter looked like it had never been changed in the car. I mean, it was so restricted. I was shocked at how dirty it was that I had as good airflow as it had.
Right.
But as soon as I pulled that out, I'm like, oh, yeah, now we got a lot of airflow. I'm good with this. So we got all the answers there.
So that was twofold. It was the control mechanism for the rear air condition.
Yep.
That was malfunctioning, knocking things out.
Yep.
You're screwing up the electronics. And then a dirty cabin filter.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed how many cars come in and you come in holding up a cabin filter and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
You're breathing that?
Yeah.
Pretty bad. So, okay, so that's more talking about maybe the airflow side of things. The other thing is the refrigerant side of things.
Yeah.
So your air conditioner in your car is full of a refrigerant, which is gas, and it's odorless. What do you call it? Odorless, colorless? You're not going to see it?
Odorless, colorless gas, yeah. When sometimes you could actually smell, 134A has a real unique odor to it, but the odor isn't the 134A. It's not the refrigerant. It's the oil we put in the refrigerator. The PAG oils have a real unusual smell. So I've had a lot of cars with evaporators that leak where I knew the evaporator was leaking as soon as I got in the car.
Because of the
turned
smell.
it on. It's like, oh, we got a leak on the inside of the car.
Right.
I can actually smell it, but I'm smelling the oil, not the gas. But that odorless, colorless gas, we have to remember, and especially as we get into the newer systems, the capacity of these systems, for the amount of refrigerant that they hold, is getting real small.
small.
Some of these are less than a pound of refrigerant. Well, if, somebody does a maintenance service on it and they don't do the service properly, just the fact that they hook gauges up to this car, if those lines, like they should have been, were pulled into a vacuum, you just put that a couple ounces of refrigerant into your lines
Yeah.
back to your machine. Well, if you don't get that back in the system, now that system is actually low. And if we're talking about a pound of refrigerant,
Mm-hmm.
an ounce or two of refrigerant loss can make
Throughout
all
the
the
whole
difference
system.
in the world how well this thing works, especially in the high temperatures.
So it's a sealed system. You got a refrigerant in there, you got a gas. And so this is a conversation about cool versus cold, right? So if you don't
Mhm.
have enough refrigerant in there, it's not going to get that nice, crisp, cold feel
Yeah.
to it. Yeah, it kind of like cools you down a little bit, but it's not impressive.
Yeah.
I want to be frozen out by the air conditioner. I want to feel that cold. And so if your refrigerant's off, but in a system, even if it's a tight system, we'll lose a little bit of refrigerant over time, even
Ye-
out without some major leak going on.
Yeah.
But spotting that leak because it's odorless and colorless,
Yeah.
I mean, we can add dyes to it. And that's the thing where the expectation, we talk about expectation, you're going in for an air conditioned service. And let's say you do have a leak and it's blowing warm and you take it in and they go, yep. And they find that it's low on charge. They charge it up, put the dye in there and it's working great. You drive away a week later, 2 days later, it's blowing warm.
Yeah.
And you call them back. I'm like, you guys, I just gave you $200 to service my air conditioner, and
Yeah.
now it's blowing warm. So that's an expectation. You should expect that it's a 2-trip service. That is, in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases.
Yeah. I don't always buy that. See, I see this routine that guys get trapped into is they bring them in, they don't really look closely, and they don't really pay attention. The first thing they want
Yeah.
to do is hook it up to the machine because the new machines are awesome. You punch the buttons, it sucks it down, draws it into a vacuum, it'll recharge it for you, so you don't have to babysit the machine. The problem with doing that is people have got into this habit where they bring them in, they hook them up, they hit the
Yeah.
button. They want to see how much refrigerant is in it, how much they can reclaim out of it. So it holds 1.5 pounds. The guy pulls, a pound out of it. It was a half a pound low. Okay, that's excessive.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
can't be a half pound low and perform the way it should. But the guys get into this routine where they do that right off the bat. Now, here's my problem. Here's what I need to know, and here's what I've got to figure out. Am I looking at a situation where this is normal attrition? Okay,
Mhm.
so older systems, especially with the older systems, they will lose small amounts of refrigerant, whether the system's operated or not, just sitting over a long period of time. They do lose some refrigerant. What I need to know is this a natural loss and there's really nothing to fix on this car?
Right.
I can suck it down, reclaim it, refill it, and we're good to go for another couple of years. Or do we have a sizable leak that's causing a problem that I need to find? So I look at something when the car first rolls in, and I always do this first. I check temperatures and pressures. I check temperatures before I check pressures.
Mhm.
So if I've got a car sitting in front of me and it's
Mhm.
blowing 44 degrees out the ducts, I'm done with the refrigerant cycle.
Right.
Okay, I'm done. I'm probably not even going to hook gauges up to it for the simple fact that the fewer number of times we do that, the less loss we incur
Mhm.
from hooking our machine up. Every time we hook the machine up, we lose a little bit of oil out of the system. The oil balance is critical, especially on these smaller systems. So there's all these reasons to not get carried. Heck, half of the time, as soon as you hook the machine up and you disconnect it, now the Schrader cores, the service valves will leak on you.
Mhm.
That's real common. So I don't jump in and go there right off the bat. I want to baseline this system.
Before you do anything.
Before I do anything, is this thing cold? Do I have enough airflow? All those things I'm going to check first before I actually hook the gauges up. Because like I said, if the thing's blowing cold, I'm not too
Mhm.
worried about the refrigerant cycle yet. So we don't want to go there yet. So now I have to determine, is this a leak that I can find today? Or is this one where I'm going to suck it down? I'm going to make sure that there's some dye in the oil send the thing out for 2 weeks, bring it back, look at it with and the dyes that we use are fluorescent, so we have to use a black light to find them to make that dye fluoresce. And I want to make that determination. So the rule of thumb that I use, I look at static pressure. So I've got a system here. It's not blowing cold. I've determined, okay, I need to hook the machine up. I need to see where my pressures are right now. So I hook the machine up. If I've got 40 PSI or less in that system, that's a pretty good sized leak. I would think that today, either with a good thorough visual inspection or with an electronic leak detector, I should be able to find that leak. If it rolls in and my static pressure is above that amount, this is a pretty small leak. So the analogy that I use, take a balloon, poke a pinhole in that balloon. If the balloon doesn't pop, which it probably will, but poke a pinhole in it, how long does the air stay in that balloon?
Take a long time.
Well, no. With a pinhole in a balloon, try it sometime. It'll deflate like this. It'll go down within seconds, right?
Okay.
So we're talking, if this thing has 60 or 100 pounds of static pressure,
Yeah.
that hole in that balloon is really, really, really small.
Okay.
That's going to make it hard to find. But if I've got that pinhole, then in theory, that balloon would deflate in a matter of minutes. It would be totally empty. So that's one of the things that we look at and try to assess it is, what is that static pressure going in? If it's 40 PSI, I can probably charge this thing up. I can find this leak. If it's above that, and if we're hovering 80, 90, 100 pounds, that's going to be a hard leak to find, okay? So that's how I kind of judge it going in as to which direction I'm going to go with fixing this. And that's one of the hardest things for guys to do is find small leaks. And
Right.
small leaks, when we're talking a small leak, we're talking about something that leaks down over a period of like 2 weeks or something like that. That's what I would consider, in some respects, that's actually a large leak. And that's the one that's tough for guys to find.
But a big leak may show up in a couple of days.
Oh, yeah.
Or even that afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're saying, anyone with a little bit of experience should be able to find that kind of leak.
Yes.
Ahead of time.
Yes.
Like, hey, we got a problem. We got to go sniffing a little bit further.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff to check. I got a minivan or an SUV here that's got front and rear air conditioners. Yeah.
Lines are up above the headliner. You're not going to see those. The evaporative core, there's a lot of the AC system that you can't see. And so I don't know if the average consumer knows that.
No.
There's stuff you can see in obvious, and once in a while people go back to shop. Well, you couldn't see the leak, Well, actually, no.
Well, yeah, and that brings me up to another one I've got to be careful with. I mentioned Schrader cores before,
right?
And that's the number one thing I hear. Guys bring them in, they look at the system, they don't see anything wrong with it. When they went to remove the service caps, there's plastic caps that unscrew. You take those caps off. And then inside there's a Schrader core, just like in a bicycle tire.
Right.
And the guys will look down in there, and maybe they'll see some little bubbles in there. There might be a little residual dye right there. Yeah, that's pretty much normal because every time somebody connects and disconnects, we lose a little bit, so we get a little dye in there. And over a period of time, those Schrader cores are not the primary seal for that system. For those service fittings, the service cap with the O-ring is actually the primary seal. That Schrader core is just a service valve, so we can get connected and disconnected without blowing refrigerant everywhere. So it's real natural. If you've got a car that hasn't had anybody disturb it, it's been 2 years. First time the guy pulls that cap off, he may get a little out of the thing. He'll just get a little pop. Pressure. And they look and they go, oh, the Schrader valves are leaking. The Schrader valves are leaking. And I'm like, wait, Schrader valves are leaking, but my static pressure is 100 PSI. Okay, now it doesn't, this don't jive, all right? So I see guys make that mistake all the time. They assume they're, and here's the other thing that happens with leaks. As soon as the guy finds a leak, he's done.
Right.
Oh, there's the leak.
Could be more than one.
What if the car's got more than one? Yeah, that's the one that gets you. And that's one of the advantages of using refrigerant dye. Refrigerant dye gives you the opportunity to see multiple leaks.
So you know, looking over it, it's an endless conversation
Yeah.
because it is the the number one thing that we see coming back to shops. I mean, number two to me, and a whole nother topic, but is the evaporative emissions codes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's another one for another day.
Yeah,
So
that's the one that everybody. But it's the same thing. We're trying to contain vacuum or air, in the system. We're going to try to retain fuel vapor within the evap system. Well, shoot, if we got to do that, it's the same kind of thing. It's finding leaks, little leaks in a device that rolls down the road, gets dirty, gets hot, gets cold.
auto repair is stressful for people. They're like, I got to go to the shop. I don't want to go to the shop. So the point here is, let's get an understanding when we have some expectations, when we understand. You don't have to know, static pressure this, static pressure that. As a consumer,
No.
It's just but that's kind of the process that you go through. But how to communicate with the shop will really help you get a good auto repair experience. And people underestimate, like, fix my car, my air conditioner doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like if you were to go to the doctor, you go to the doctor and you sit on the table and he says, how can I help you? What's going on? Well, you're the doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, can you give me a hint?
Yeah. Yeah.
Chest pains or something? Give me something to go off. So that communication piece, don't feel frustrated because you don't know what you're communicating. We understand that.
Well, yeah. The other part of the communication is I'm bringing my car in because it's May and it's starting to get hot out. And the air conditioner works perfect. I just want you to chuck it over and make sure it's going to continue to do that through the summer. Okay, so that's a whole nother approach. Again, that's one where I'm not automatically going to hook gauges up to it.
Right.
I'm going to do a performance test. I'm going to check temperatures. I'm going to check airflow and stuff. And if it's all good, I'm probably not. A lot of guys want to hook up. They want to suck it down because that's how they get paid. They make more money that way. That's not always the best move. The less number of times we have to open that system up, the better, because theoretically that's a hermetically sealed system. We don't want any moisture in that system. That creates acids, which cause leaks in the deterioration of the aluminum and oxidation and stuff. So we really want to be careful with that. And I think some of it gets overdone.
Well, when we circle back, and thanks for joining us, we'll circle back to air conditioning. We'll talk about the components in the air conditioning system. So when you are talking to the shop, you have some information and it feels somewhat familiar.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on the Bumper to Bumper podcast. Well, hello, I'm Dave Riccio, your host of the Bumper to Bumper podcast. And I would like to thank you for tuning in. If you want one of your car questions to be answered on our podcast, tap the link in the description for a chance to have your question featured. And while you are there, we would love for you to like and subscribe to see more Bumper to Bumper podcasts in the future.